College professors, what is the most genius thing you have seen a student do in one of your classes? I was a TA for a second-year chemistry course, the kind of class where students are expected to turn in worksheets twice a week. The worksheets were long, sometimes messy, and if they weren't organized properly, it turned into a nightmare trying to grade them. I always required the students to staple their work before handing it in. Every week, there were at least a few who forgot, and it usually ended with frantic scrambling for a stapler or papers slipping everywhere on my desk. One afternoon, I noticed a student sliding a neatly folded stack of worksheets across the table. At first glance, I thought they had finally remembered to staple, but when I reached for it, I realized there were no staples at all. I lifted the stack carefully, trying to figure out how it was staying together. It didn't make sense. The corners were folded in a precise, almost geometric pattern, holding every page in place as securely as any staple could. I asked the student how they managed it. They just smiled and explained that they had come up with a folding technique, almost like origami, that interlocked the pages. You couldn't pull them apart without carefully undoing the folds, which made it impossible for the sheets to come apart accidentally. It was elegant, clever, and completely unexpected. I had to see it for myself, so the student walked me through the method step by step. Each fold fit into the next, creating tension and friction that kept the worksheets aligned perfectly. I tried to pull it apart quickly, and, of course, I couldn't. I had to undo each fold carefully to separate the pages without tearing them. It was like some kind of puzzle disguised as homework organization. The rest of the class noticed too. Other students started leaning over, asking questions, trying to see the trick. I watched their faces light up when they realized it wasn't a trick at all. It was just clever thinking. The ingenuity of figuring out a problem like that without buying a stapler or making a mess struck me. It wasn't something taught. It wasn't in the instructions, and it wasn't something most people would have considered. It was pure creativity applied to a mundane problem. By the next week, I had decided to show the technique to the entire class. I even kept one of the folded worksheets on hand during lab sessions to demonstrate. Whenever a student forgot a stapler, I would point to the stack and say, "You can try folding it this way if you want," and the class would erupt in quiet laughter and murmurs of appreciation. Some students mastered it immediately, while others spent 5 minutes fumbling with corners, trying to replicate it without success. The folding method became a sort of legend in that chemistry class, something students would reference when talking about clever hacks or unexpected solutions. I realized later that what impressed me most wasn't just the method itself, but the way the student had approached a problem creatively. They didn't complain about not having a stapler, and they didn't try to sneak around the rule. They used their knowledge of physics and structure, the friction, tension, and angles of the paper, to solve a problem elegantly and independently. It wasn't something anyone could teach. You either saw the problem in a way they did, or you didn't. That semester, every time I graded a stack of worksheets, I thought back to that folded set. It reminded me that genius doesn't always show up in the obvious ways, like complex calculations or perfectly written lab reports. Sometimes it appears in small, practical solutions that make life easier for everyone else, while showing the student's ability to think critically and creatively. Years later, I still remember that moment. I can picture the careful folds, the way the corners locked perfectly, and the look of pride on the student's face when I struggled to separate the pages. It was a reminder that intelligence isn't always measured in formulas or test scores. Sometimes it's measured in creativity, problem solving, and the ability to see a solution no one else notices. That folded stack of worksheets became a story I told new TAs, a small example of ingenuity that didn't involve chemistry at all, just clever thinking and a little patience. It stayed with me because it was simple, elegant, and unexpectedly brilliant. The student never asked for credit beyond submitting their homework, but their solution left an impression that lasted far longer than the semester itself.